Logan Blackwell had it all. With his striking good looks, athletic build, and a bank account that could buy any pleasure he desired, he was used to getting his way. The 29-year-old heir to a global real estate empire lived a life filled with yacht parties, designer suits, and the thrill of high-stakes games. He was charming but reckless, and his friends admired him for his daring, his charisma, and for the sharp, playful arrogance he wore like a suit of armor. It was a rainy Tuesday evening when Logan found himself in an exclusive Manhattan bar, surrounded by his friends, each as wealthy and as aimless as he was. Amidst their laughter and boasting, his best friend, Jake, leaned back with a smirk, eyes sparkling with mischief. "Logan," Jake drawled, his words slurred just enough to hint at the cocktails he'd consumed. "I've got a challenge for you." Logan raised an eyebrow, always intrigued by a new dare. "Oh yeah? Name it." Jake leaned closer, his voice low but edged with mockery. "I bet you can't charm, woo, and marry a woman who isn't your usual type." The group burst into laughter, as Logan narrowed his eyes. He was always game for a challenge, but Jake's smirk suggested more. "What do you mean by not my usual type?" he asked, trying to appear unfazed. Jake glanced around the bar, and his gaze settled on a woman across the room. She sat alone, sipping her coffee with a quiet confidence, seemingly lost in thought. Her name was Anna Porter. She was beautiful, but in a way Logan's friends would never appreciate. Full-figured and unfashionably dressed, Anna radiated warmth, but she was far from the glamorous women Logan usually pursued. "Her," Jake said, pointing a subtle finger. "A woman like her." The crowd fell silent. Logan felt the sting of pride more than the weight of conscience. The challenge was both a taunt and a test of his charm. And Logan had never lost a bet. He lifted his glass, locking eyes with Jake. "Fine. You're on." With a last, smug grin from Jake, Logan slid out of his seat and crossed the room. He approached Anna's table with practiced confidence, flashing her a charming smile. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" She looked up, surprised but polite, gesturing for him to sit. "Not at all. Go ahead." For Logan, the thrill of a new game surged within him. He introduced himself, careful to project an easy, genuine warmth. He asked about her day, complimented her choice of coffee, even shared a laugh or two. To his surprise, Anna was intelligent, quick-witted, and refreshingly genuine, qualities he rarely encountered in his usual crowd. By the end of the night, he felt a strange connection growing between them. He brushed it off as just good strategy. After all, he'd have to make her trust him to win this bet. Over the next few weeks, Logan went out of his way to see Anna as often as he could. He took her to modest cafes instead of his usual expensive haunts, listened to her stories about her work as a social worker, and even began to admire her dedication to helping others. She seemed so deeply rooted in her values, so unpretentious, and Logan couldn't deny the warmth she brought to his otherwise shallow life. Anna, too, found herself drawn to Logan. She was wary at first. Men like him didn't typically pay attention to women like her. But he seemed genuinely interested in her world, in her thoughts, in her beliefs. Her heart softened, and a cautious hope began to grow. She found herself looking forward to his calls, to the laughter they shared, to the moments that felt too real to be part of a game. And then came the night Logan had been waiting for. As they walked through the city after a quiet dinner, he stopped beneath the glow of streetlights, looking down at her with an intensity that made her heart race. He took her hand, and before she could register the moment, he said it. "Anna, I know it's only been a short while, but I've never felt this way before. Will you marry me?" Anna's breath caught, her heart swelling with joy and disbelief. She nodded, tears in her eyes, as he slipped a ring onto her finger. In the thrill of her acceptance, Logan felt a pang he hadn't anticipated. But he shook it off, reminding himself it was only a game. A bet. Little did he know that the game he thought he'd been playing was only just beginning. Anna's world had transformed. Her heart was filled with a joy she had almost given up on finding, wrapped in the warmth of Logan's unexpected love. Their wedding was small, intimate, attended by her closest friends and family. Logan had wanted it that way, assuring her that what mattered was the connection they shared, not the grandeur of a public spectacle. For Anna, it was a dream come true. And yet, in moments of quiet reflection, she still felt a lingering hint of disbelief. Logan was kind, attentive, and doted on her in a way that made her feel beautiful in her own skin. She'd never known someone to look at her the way he did, as if she were the only woman in the world. It was surreal and terrifying. She couldn't help but wonder what a man like him, a millionaire with the world at his feet, saw in a simple woman like her. Logan's friends were mostly out of the picture now. He claimed he was done with their elitist games and was ready to build a life with her, free from shallow distractions. She wanted to believe him, so she chose to silence her doubts and focus on the present. Anna threw herself into their marriage, filling their home with warmth, laughter, and the stability she knew Logan had been missing. In her own way, she set out to make him feel loved in a way she sensed he'd never truly experienced. Yet beneath the surface, Logan wrestled with emotions he hadn't prepared for. The carefree nights of luxury he once cherished now felt hollow, though he couldn't entirely place why. There was a part of him that had come to depend on Anna's unshakable kindness, her open heart, her belief in him. She didn't want his money or his connections, she only wanted him, as he was. And as the days turned into months, he found himself shifting into a life he hadn't planned for. One night, as they lay in bed, Anna rested her head on his shoulder, a soft smile lighting her face. "I never imagined I'd be this happy," she whispered. "Thank you for choosing me." The words hit Logan harder than he anticipated. He'd spent years building walls around himself, protecting his image, his pride. He'd always believed he was in control, and yet here he was, lying beside a woman who had somehow unraveled him. She had trusted him, wholeheartedly, and her gratitude came so honestly, so vulnerably, that he felt a pang of guilt he couldn't shake. A week later, Jake came by unannounced. Anna was out volunteering at a community center, leaving Logan alone to face his friend's sudden arrival. "Logan." Jake grinned as he strolled in, looking around their modestly decorated apartment with thinly veiled amusement. "Living the humble life, are we? How's the newlywed?" Logan forced a smile, uneasy in a way he couldn't quite place. "I'm happy, Jake. Happier than I expected." "That's the spirit. The bet turned out to be a pretty good deal for you, huh?" Jake laughed, clapping him on the back. "You really went through with it. I didn't think you had it in you." Logan's stomach tightened. He didn't like the look in Jake's eyes, the way he was reveling in a joke that had long lost its humor. "Listen, man, it's not like that anymore. I care about Anna. This is real to me now," he said, his voice edged with a firmness he didn't expect. Jake arched an eyebrow, surprised. "Come on, Logan. Don't tell me you're actually falling for her." He chuckled dismissively. "I mean, it's sweet that she doesn't know, but don't lose sight of what this was about. You won, you beat the odds." "Enough," Logan interrupted, his voice taut. A new feeling of anger flared within him, mingling with guilt and self-reproach. He realized he couldn't bear the thought of Anna learning the truth, of her discovering the shallow, selfish roots of their relationship. In that moment, he felt the weight of his deception more acutely than ever before. Jake shrugged, unaffected. "Suit yourself, but just remember, it's all fun and games until someone finds out the truth." With that, he left, his laughter echoing in the room, leaving Logan standing alone, engulfed by the silence. He sat down on the couch, burying his head in his hands, feeling trapped by the very game he had so willingly played. That night, as Anna came home, full of stories from her day, Logan forced a smile, nodding in all the right places, laughing where he should. But his heart was heavy. He could no longer ignore the reality that had grown between them, a reality built on a lie. In the stillness of the evening, as Anna drifted off to sleep beside him, Logan lay awake, gripped by an agonizing realization: he loved her. And in loving her, he had already betrayed her in the worst possible way. The truth of his actions gnawed at him, a constant reminder of the person he had been. But he didn't know how to tell her the truth, nor how to escape the consequences he knew he would soon face. The days that followed were filled with a tension Anna couldn't quite put her finger on. Logan seemed distant, lost in his own thoughts. His laughter, once so natural, now seemed forced, and his eyes held a sadness she didn't understand. She asked him more than once if something was wrong, but he always brushed her off, assuring her he was just stressed with work. One evening, after a silent dinner, Anna finally worked up the courage to confront him. She reached across the table, gently taking his hand in hers. "Logan, please, tell me what's really going on. I can see it in your eyes, you're not here with me." "Not really." Logan hesitated, his mind racing. He looked at Anna, her warm, trusting eyes searching his face, and felt the weight of his guilt bear down on him again. How could he tell her the truth without breaking her heart? The fear of losing her gripped him, and yet, he knew he couldn't keep lying to the woman he loved. "Anna," he began, his voice low, "there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you a long time ago." Anna's face softened, her hand tightening over his as she prepared herself for whatever he might say. "Go on, Logan. Whatever it is, we'll face it together." He looked away, his throat tightening. "When we met, it wasn't by chance. I approached you because of a bet. A stupid, heartless bet I made with Jake. He dared me to win you over, to marry you. I was reckless, and I didn't care about anyone but myself." Anna pulled her hand back as if she'd been burned, her face draining of color. The words sank in slowly, each one cutting deeper than the last. A bet," she whispered, her voice shaking. He nodded, unable to meet her eyes. "At first, yes. But then, I got to know you. And everything changed. Anna, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. I fell in love with you. I didn't expect to, but I did." Tears welled up in her eyes as she tried to process what she was hearing. The foundation of their relationship, every moment of tenderness, every quiet whisper, had been built on a lie. A wave of anger surged within her, mingling with a sorrow so deep it felt as if her heart might shatter. "Do you have any idea what this means to me?" she managed, her voice trembling. "You were the man I believed in, the one who saw me, who valued me when I didn't even value myself. And all this time, it was just a game." "No," he said quickly, desperation lacing his voice. "It was never just a game to me, not after I got to know you. Anna, please, believe me. I know I hurt you, but I'm begging you to see that I'm not that man anymore. You changed me. You made me realize what real love is." Anna took a shaky breath, staring down at the ring on her finger, the ring she'd once thought symbolized everything pure and true. She felt betrayed, humiliated, as if her own happiness had been twisted into some cruel joke. How could he have been so heartless? How could he stand there now, asking her to believe him? "I need time, Logan," she said finally, her voice barely a whisper. "I need to think." Logan's heart sank, but he nodded, knowing he had no right to ask for more. That night, Anna packed a small bag and left, retreating to her sister's home on the outskirts of the city. The pain followed her there, clinging to her like a shadow. She felt hollow, lost. The life she'd built with Logan now felt like a cruel illusion, each memory tainted by the knowledge of how it had begun. The days at her sister's house dragged on, a blur of sleepless nights and empty mornings. But as the initial shock faded, she found herself sifting through her memories, searching for any hint that Logan had truly changed, that perhaps he had been telling the truth about his love for her. Her sister, Maria, was a comforting presence, offering gentle words and understanding without pressing her for details. One evening, as they sat together in the small, cozy living room, Maria finally spoke up. Anna, I can't tell you what to do. But I know this, love isn't perfect, and people make mistakes. The question is whether or not he's genuinely sorry, whether or not he's shown you he's willing to do the hard work to be better. Anna's mind was flooded with memories of Logan's tender gestures, his willingness to adapt to her world, the small, thoughtful things he'd done for her. She couldn't deny that he'd shown her a side of himself she didn't believe was part of some bet. She sensed, somewhere deep down, that he'd fallen in love with her just as she had with him. And that truth, however painful, softened her heart. After a week, she returned home, her emotions still raw but tempered with a newfound clarity. She walked into their apartment to find Logan sitting on the couch, his face drawn and haunted, as though he hadn't slept since she left. He looked up, surprise and relief flooding his expression. "Anna," he breathed, standing to approach her, though he held back, as if afraid to cross some unseen boundary. "I need to know one thing," she said, her voice steady. "If you could go back and undo it all, would you?" He swallowed, his eyes filling with regret. "Yes, I would undo the bet, the lies, all of it. But I would still want to meet you, to love you, to marry you. That's the only part of my life that's real, Anna. You're my truth." Her heart ached, torn between pain and hope. She searched his face, looking for any hint of insincerity, any sign that his words were just another game. But all she saw was raw honesty, a vulnerability she'd never seen in him before. After a long, quiet moment, she nodded. "If we're going to make this work, Logan, it has to be on a foundation of honesty. No lies. No games." A glimmer of hope lit his eyes. "I swear, Anna. I'll spend the rest of my life making it right. If you'll let me." With a shaky breath, she stepped forward, and they stood face to face, the distance between them closing as they both faced the unknown, ready to rebuild. The days that followed Anna's return were not easy. Trust, once broken, was not easily mended. Anna and Logan found themselves moving with caution around each other, careful, testing the waters of forgiveness and sincerity. But despite the rocky start, there was a new sense of purpose in both of them, a commitment that grew stronger with every hard, honest conversation. Logan went out of his way to prove his love was genuine. He had never felt so vulnerable in his life, and yet he welcomed it. He understood now that loving Anna meant being real, even if it exposed his own flaws and insecurities. He started small, paying attention to the little things that mattered to her, making room for her passions, and showing her in countless ways that he was committed to becoming a better man. One evening, Logan surprised Anna by volunteering to help at the community center she cherished. She was touched by his sincerity, watching as he listened to the people who came through, respecting their stories, and handling everything with a humility that was so different from the man she'd first met. After the event, as they walked home through the soft glow of the city lights, Anna took his hand, a warmth blooming in her chest that she hadn't felt in a long time. "Thank you, Logan," she said quietly, "for coming tonight. It meant a lot to me." He looked down at her, his eyes filled with a gratitude she'd never seen before. "I wanted to be here," he replied, his voice soft. "This is your world, Anna. And I want to be part of it." Their days became a new blend of old comforts and fresh starts. Logan made a point of inviting her into every corner of his life, showing her a man who was willing to put in the work to rebuild their foundation. With each passing week, Anna felt the walls around her heart slowly breaking down. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust again, but a part of her still feared that the past might come back to haunt them. One night, Logan finally did what he knew he had to. He took Anna to meet his old friend, Jake. It was a difficult choice, but he knew she needed to see, to witness him openly confronting the man who had been there at the start of their betrayal. As they sat across from Jake at a quiet cafe, Logan's expression was one of steely resolve. Jake, though taken aback by Anna's presence, still wore his usual smirk, clearly unaware of the depth of Logan's transformation. "Jake," Logan began, his tone firm, "I'm done with all the games, all the lies. and I want you to understand that. The bet? That was the worst mistake of my life. But Anna, she changed me. And I don't care what you think about it. Jake scoffed, rolling his eyes. You've really gone soft, Logan. Trading in fun for this? He motioned dismissively toward Anna, unaware of the strength that now filled her heart. Anna didn't flinch. She looked him directly in the eyes, calm but firm. You don't know him like I do, Jake. Not anymore. And if you're the kind of friend who wants him to stay stuck in a shallow, empty life, then maybe he doesn't need friends like you. Logan's heart swelled with admiration for her courage, for the way she stood by him even after everything he'd done. As they left the cafe, hand in hand, Logan felt lighter, as if he'd finally let go of a piece of his past that no longer served him. He had chosen a new path, a path defined by honesty, respect, and love. Over the following months, their relationship blossomed in ways neither of them had anticipated. They started over, not as strangers, but as people who had faced their darkest sides and still chose to walk forward, together. They traveled, exploring new places and building memories that were truly theirs. Anna felt the fears and insecurities she carried for so long begin to dissolve. Logan loved her as she was, and she knew it now, without a shadow of a doubt. One evening, as they celebrated their anniversary in a small, intimate restaurant, Logan looked across the table at Anna, his eyes filled with the love he could finally express without shame or guilt. Anna, he said, reaching for her hand, thank you for giving me a second chance. I know I didn't deserve it, but you've changed my life in ways I never thought possible. You taught me what it means to be a better person, a better partner. I'll never stop proving that to you. She smiled, her heart brimming with gratitude, knowing the journey they had taken to reach this moment. She had seen him at his worst, had felt the sting of betrayal, and yet here they were, stronger than ever, because they had chosen to rebuild on a foundation of truth and respect. In that moment, Anna realized that every scar, every tear, had been worth it. She had found her happiness not in the fairy tale she'd once imagined, but in the real, flawed, and beautiful love she now shared with Logan. And so, they continued, side by side, ready to face whatever life might bring, knowing they had built a love that could withstand any storm. If you liked it, subscribe to the channel and enjoy these other amazing stories.